Our next speaker, Dr. Leonid Perlovsky. Dr. Perlovsky is the CEO of LP Information Technology. He conducted R&D as a visiting scholar at Harvard University's School of Engineering and Applied Sciences and Medical School, Athenua Martinos Brain Imaging Center. He was the technical advisor and principal research scientist at AF Research Lab. He created a new area of cognitive mathematical engineering, dynamic logic, which solved a number of big data problems unsolvable for decades. He led research projects on mathematical models of the mind mechanisms, including higher cognitive functions, language, emotions of the beautiful music, cognitive algorithms for automatic recognition, integration of disparate data, interaction between cognition and language, hierarchy of abstract models, predictive and diagnostic models of culture, applications of this model to military intelligence, data mining, genetic phenotype correlation studies, and cybersecurity. The rest of his extensive bio is in your notes, and I would like to once again welcome Dr. Perlovsky.
Thank you. Thank you. Great, thank you. Cognitive technology is a big thing today. We have so many sensors measuring so many different aspects of reality and of technology and social life around us. The question is how we can extract from this data, how we can extract something, not something, but information that is useful for making decisions. And this area is called today big data. But what I would like first to say is that well, big data really is nothing new. For decades, we had area of science where there was tremendous number of data, and extracting useful information from it was difficult. And it is well known that the brain mind does extracted information from a lot of data better than computers. So maybe we can study from the mind how it does it. So therefore, I will start with describing some fundamental principles of the mind-brain. Then I will say a few words about mathematical models of how we can model the mind, and I will emphasize that big data is not something specific to today's technological environment where we have a lot of information and a lot of sensors measuring a lot of data, but whenever we are trying to understand what's going on in our mind, it always is a big data problem. There are always tremendous number of signals coming at the same time, and making sense out of them is not and never was easy. Then I discuss cognitive algorithms and several specific engineering applications where actually studying mind and using the principles that mind used to understand reality can be used for engineering purposes. And then if I have enough time, I'm not sure about that, I'll say few interesting, as I think interesting things about what mind does, about higher ability of the mind, and in addition to saying a few words about mathematics that describe these processes, also maybe I'll have time to demonstrate to you experimentally, well, it will take only maybe 15 seconds, that what I'm saying about mathematics corresponds to the reality of the working of the mind-brain. So let me first say what are the few most fundamental principles of operation of the mind? Well, among them are instincts, emotions, concepts. Of course, nothing new. We know all of these things. But it turned out that they can be easily described mathematically, well, more or less easily described mathematically, and we can design algorithms that use these principles for engineering applications. Then the question is, can we understand our higher emotions and cognition? Can we understand the hierarchy of the mind that goes from, say, perceiving specific objects to understanding what is the concept of the beautiful? Well, it turned out that it is also possible. And I'll say a few words about that. And then, again, if I have time, that I'm not sure, is I will say a few words what is a similarity and differences between language and cognition. Can we understand the world without language? Can we speak language without understanding the world? What would it be if we cannot connect language and cognition? And actually, well, obviously, more or less obviously, we have to do both. We have to understand language and we have to understand the world, and we should be able to connect them together. And so I say a few words about what are the directions that we should pursue in order to do this. So let me first describe mathematical model of concepts. Concepts are not the most simple thing within mind, but it is something that we can all understand what it is. Like things such as instincts and emotions are much older than mechanisms of concepts in our mind, but it is not directly in our consciousness what they are, so it is easier to start with concepts. Well, concepts are neural representations. So there are some neural structures in the mind that represent what we see around. And, well, in simple way, you can say that concepts are memories. You have seen a table, you have seen a chair, and these memories form concepts in your mind. When you see chair next time, oh, this is chair, I know what it is. However, describing this process mathematically turned out to be very complicated. And mathematicians analyzing the mind, artificial intelligence, neural networks, were trying to describe mathematically these processes since the 1950s, and many approaches failed. I will say a few words about new mathematical approach that is called dynamic logic. Instead of classical logic, which operates with static statements such as this is a table or this is a chair, which are static statements, the mind does not operate with this, or very little attention, very little processes mind devotes to this kind of static statements. Mind operates with processes. Most of what's going on in the mind is processes. And dynamic logic, it's called exactly dynamic because it describes the processes that are going on in mind. And the fundamental mathematical aspect of dynamic logic is, well, let me see, maybe I can, yep. The fundamental aspect of this process is it is a process from vague to crisp. It turned out that our memories in our mind are never as logical, as crisp, as clear as objects that we see around us. And so we need mathematics describing this. And dynamic logic does exactly that. It is a process from vague, fuzzy representations in the mind toward concrete objects around us. And when we can match our fuzzy memory to concrete objects, then we understand what's going on. And, excuse me, I really need to look at my watches, because otherwise I can easily talk longer than I have time to talk. Let me, as I promised, let me convince that what I've just said purely in abstract way, that actually this is the fact about how the mind works. Let's do experiment. I will demonstrate to you, and if you follow me, you will see that what I said is true. We will do experimental proof of what I say. And let me repeat again what exactly I want to prove. I want to prove that our representations or memories in our mind are vague. And it can be proven in 10-15 seconds. If you follow me, let's do it. Imagine an object in front of you, just any object, a cup or chair or this screen, doesn't matter. Then close your eyes, and please do indeed follow what I'm doing, because otherwise we will waste it. And try to imagine this object, and try to imagine it as clear as you have seen it 5 minutes ago. You cannot do it. Just concentrate on the fact that what you're imagining, you can open eyes and just, you will see right away again the clear object that is in front of your eyes. But you cannot, with closed eyes, we cannot imagine object as clear as we see it with opened eyes. And some people say, oh, it is obvious, of course. Some people say, wow, it's very strange, why this is so? If I will think a little bit and concentrate a little bit more, of course I can imagine things exactly as they are in nature. Well, the fact, no, you cannot. And it took a while to actually notice that this is a fact of life, that with closed eyes, we cannot imagine objects as clear as we can see them with opened eyes. And it took a while to develop mathematics, the dynamic logic that describes this process from vague representation to clear-cut reality. And there has been a group of people at Harvard who decided that yes, they need to demonstrate that this is the fact of life, that it's really happened that beyond just, well, of course, I think I already have proved it to you, but they thought that they will use contemporary machinery of brain imaging, and they did, and they demonstrated that yes, what we just have seen true, they have demonstrated with a lot of more details, of course. They demonstrated that yes, it is fact. Representations in our mind are vague, and in addition, everything in our mind which is vague is also unconscious. It would be important later, but now I'll just say that is the reason why people didn't pay much attention to vagueness of what's going on in our mind. And the reason is that, well, we only are aware of what we are conscious of, and if we are not conscious of, we kind of tend not to pay attention. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of scientific analysis to pay attention to something that you are not subjectively conscious of. So a few more, I'll just very quickly repeat what I just already said, that mathematical models of the mind since 1950s, whichever people tried, they failed. And they failed exactly because the modeling of the mind took kind of only exclusively logical, it was logical, based on logic. But logic occupies very, very small, less than 0.1% of operations that goes on in the mind are logical and conscious. It is very important for communication, for talking among people, but when you try to understand something, the vagueness is tremendously important. And the reason why is it important is called in mathematics combinatorial complexity. If you try to match what is in your mind or brain with what is around, if what were there would be very specific and clear, and you will have to match things like that. But you never see the same table, the same chair, the same cup, exactly in exactly same position, with exactly same angle, with exactly same objects around. Therefore, if you expect to do this kind of matching, you will have to match, to try a lot of different ways of matching these things, and the number of operations that you will have to try is very large. Larger than the size of the universe, and that's why many good approaches, good on the surface, did not really work mathematically because they required more than a universe number of computations in order to do this. And dynamic logic is important. Dynamic logic is important because it doesn't require exact match. It matches first vaguely, and then from this vague match, it goes to exact match. And this overcomes this difficulty of combinatorial complexity. So let me show you one picture. People say one figure is better than 1,000 words. So this is how dynamic logic works. Here is an image available to a computer. And the only thing you can see here is noise, because in this example there is more noise than real signal. But I know, because it is a simulated data, I know that under noise there are 3 objects like this. I call them smiles and frowns, just to call them something. And no matter how long you will look here, you will not see them because they are signals is much weaker than noise in this example. And here's how dynamic logic solves the problem, or find objects under noise. It uses multiple models. In fact, there is also model of noise, but I don't show you because model of noise will cover everything else. Dynamic logic starts with a vague idea. Maybe there is something, maybe there is nothing. And after a few iterations, it decides, well, maybe there are not 1, but 3 of some sort of an object. And then later it becomes really sure that there are 3 objects. But when it gets, so to speak, more closer to matching, it realizes that this kind of parabolic models match the data better than circular models. And after, actually in this case, 17 iterations, the algorithm cannot match better. And it stops matching and say, okay, I did the best I can. And you see that what it gets here is very similar to the truth, so it's really found object. So this is how dynamic logic works. It starts with vague and gets to crisp representation, or more or less crisp as it could, to the data. This is another example. In this case, there are 3 sensors looking at 4 targets. It's a similar problem, but just much more complicated. I just would like to show you that, again, there is noise and there is true objects, and you can note that this object is right on the top of that object. And so if you look with this single sensor alone, it will never be able even to distinguish that there are 2 objects, because sensor resolution doesn't allow you to do that. Nevertheless, if you combine information from all 3 sensors, because 3 sensors see these objects under different views, the algorithm, doing similar things to what before, the algorithm was able to distinguish that there are 2 objects. It is essentially the same thing as on the previous one, only the information from 3 sensors had to be combined, and people didn't know how to do it previously. And it's a second sensor and third sensor. Again, as I said, this problem was not solved for decades. The reason is that existing algorithms that people use for solving this kind of problems would have to perform approximately 10 power 17,000 operations. Well, clearly it's too much. It's much, much larger than the entire universe. If the entire universe will try to solve this problem, if every elementary particle will do something useful for this problem, still the universe will end before the problem will be solved. Dynamic logic solved it. So just to illustrate the fact that indeed it is a powerful technique. This is another example what people kind of today more kind of ready to call real big data. So it is situation. What is a situation? For example, this room is a situation. What is the meaning of the situation? Well, obviously it is a lecture hall. Everyone understands that. What do we need? How many objects do we need to really understand what's going on here? Well, there are tables and people sit at the tables, and there is a lecturer who says something, and there is a screen. How much time do I have?
You're fine.
I'm okay. Okay, and so it is very easy for us to understand what, of course, everyone, a small kid will come into this room and understand this is a situation called lecture hall. But let me explain why it is so complicated that people couldn't do it, solve this kind of, people working with computers. Computers were not able to solve it for decades. For example, well, look how many objects here are on the ceiling. We know that it should be ignored. These particular patterns on the ceiling are not essential for understanding what's going on. But it is easy for us how you will explain to a computer that these particular shapes on the ceiling, how a computer should know that they are not important. Or look in the floor. There is very intricate patterns on this floor cover. How a computer know to ignore it? Or particular shapes of your cups and and forks. All of this should be ignored in understanding simplicity what's going on here. And this is true for all kinds of situations. For example, I can look in this direction and I see a lot of objects. Even so, you know that these objects are not essential for understanding, but how a computer would know that these lines are not essential for understanding, or these particular shapes, well, maybe they're important for something, but they are not essential for understanding what's going on in this room. And it was very, very difficult for computer to find out what's important and what's not important. Nevertheless, dynamic logic was able to solve. Now, let me maybe explain in more detail what is here. Every point along this line is a situation, and in this world, computer can recognize 1,000 objects. So for every point here, there is potentially 1,000 objects, but in reality, maybe 50 or 100 objects of this total 1,000 actually are present, and they are indicated with white dot and black dot, and the whole thing looks like a noise, and that's essentially what it is, because we encounter different situations with different objects, more or less random, and that's what makes understanding or solving this problem difficult. But this is what dynamic logic algorithms was able to do. This first 50 or 100, I don't remember how many. Yeah, the total number of situations here is 16,000. The total number of potentially existing objects is about 1,000. And the first, say maybe 50 to 100, I don't remember how many, situations here have several objects repeated all the time. Every time you encounter this kind of situation, several objects are always present there. For example, if there is a lecture hall, there would be people present and there would be a lecturer. Other things could be present, could be absent. Certainly what's going on the ceiling or on the floor might randomly, certain objects might randomly occur, but they are not essential. And that's what this algorithm found here. Or say, for example, this situation. In this situation, there are several objects, and again, there is like about 50 or 100 of similar situations in which these objects are some objects are present all the time, and that's how this algorithm sorted through the situations and find out indeed there are certain situations in which some objects are repeated all the time. The rest is random, and actually about half of these situations are not any kind of important situation, but just random collections of some objects. Well, this is how errors, how quickly the algorithm learned, and how quickly the errors were reduced. It is an iterative algorithm, and after first iteration, the algorithm already get very close to solution. When I have seen first time, I was surprised, couldn't believe that it really works that well. We still don't have very good just mathematical theory explaining why it works so efficiently, why after 2-3 iterations, essentially, the problem is solved. There was time in my life when I saw I wanted to become rich. Well, I don't mind to become rich now, but I'm admitting it is not as easy as solving mathematical problem is difficult, but that's not the whole thing. This is just example of one of the algorithms I developed, and at the time I had a company. And you see, these are S&P and NASDAQ 100, what they do. And at that time, actually, the market went down significantly. But being able to predict what will happen, we were able to actually make money. You can make money even when the markets go down. People say, people who know financials, they know that you can sell what you don't have. It's called sell short. So you sell what you don't have, then you buy it cheaper, and you become rich if you are lucky. Well, actually, this company existed for 2 years before 2001, and after 2001, well, in 2001 and 1911, this algorithm predicted actually that all markets will go down, predicted a week ahead, and my investors made a lot of money, but then they get kind of their cold feet. They say, oh, Leonid, but you wouldn't predict it every time when it happens. Let us take our money and just go away from you, and you continue on your own. And so I did not become a billionaire at that time. So these are a list of some of the engineering applications where we applied cognitive technology, like pattern under noise, tracking moving objects under noise, integrating signals from multiple databases. These are all important problems. And what people call big data problems are such as recognition and learning of situations, making financial predictions, data mining from various diverse data sources. And next things on which we are working now on include, say, how to correlate genes and diseases. And if I have time, I'll tell you more. I still have time? Yes. Oh, okay, then maybe I will tell you why. Despite of the fact that doctors know that certain diseases are really genetic diseases, and they can correlate because, you know, thousands of people have their genomes completely analyzed, but still predicting that a particular person will get a particular disease is not as good as it should be from extraneous information that sometimes doctors have. So there are a lot of interesting things that people can do. I am, well, there is adaptive cybersecurity, that is automatically developing computer defenses against attacks, for example, is one of the problems. Another one that I am interested in most is called social informatics. How can we be able to understand the evolution of languages and cultures and find out that, well, sometimes, maybe 40 years ago, scientists didn't want to concentrate on the fact that people are different, and we were, well, political correctness were pushing scientists to say all people are equal. Well, of course, people are equal in some way, but people are also different. Different cultures are different from ours, and there are many different cultures. So that's what I am interested in. What is the relationship between language and culture, how it depends on historical evolution of languages and cultures. So there is a lot of interesting things that could be done that require processing. collection and processing of tremendous number of data. This is, well, I wouldn't talk anymore, well, maybe one word again about genes and diseases. Today, doctors can correlate one disease with one gene. But what if a particular subset of this disease is correlated with one subset of genes, and another subset of similar diseases is correlated with another kind of subset of genes? This is a complicated problem because there are about 300,000 genes which are changing. There's many more, like 10 million of genes that are similar for all people, but about 300,000 of genes are changing and could sometimes be kind of dangerous for health. So how you will find a combinations of maybe 10 or dozens of genes out of, say, 300,000 of possible, and correlate them with tremendous number of, you need very expensive databases which contains, entire gene information for large group of people. That makes it difficult. At least this is one of the problems now I am addressing together with a group of doctors, and well, we hope maybe we will find something. This is another problem, closely related to what I in detail show you with finding situations. Adaptive cybersecurity. Here I used existing database of viruses, or what computer science called malware, just dangerous things. And in this case, in the dynamic logic looked at, there is altogether about 120,000 of malware, like virus-infected neural network, neural has nothing to do with it. Computer network packages infected with various viruses. And you see that it is a first step, of course, toward creating defense. Dynamic logic was able to find all of these 120,000 infected packages without a single error. Of course, it is important to do it without errors, because if your computer will tell you, oh, danger, maybe something bad is coming, well, after 20 times, you'll start ignoring this kind of things. So it is important to be able to solve this problem without errors. How much time do I have? I can stop at this point, or I can continue.
Why don't you take another 5 minutes? Because
okay.
There's plenty of time.
Okay. So let me say a few more words about our ability. So it is amazing how much we can mathematically model today and understand about the mind. And again, let me repeat that it is important that significant or important, how to say it, I say important problem or process in the mind is a process from vague to crisp. And that's what majority of people don't understand, because what is vague is also unconscious. And what is subjectively unconscious to us, it's very difficult to pay attention to it. And the majority of psychologists, of course, don't know about it, and their ideas are not always correct. I'm trying to be nice to psychologists, but mathematicians are not better than that. Only few of them. Those who are friends of mine and read my papers, they know what they should, at least direction in which they should be thinking. What I would like to do, of course, some people, I'm trying to do revolution. I'm trying to tell to people the mind is not logical. Logic is important only for talking among us, so that other people understand what you already understood. But we have to be able also to understand those unconscious, subjectively unconscious things which require mathematical analysis that goes on in the brain. Well, for example, instincts. Instincts are very easy to describe mathematically. Instincts are sensors in our bodies that measure vital parameters. And so, for example, sugar level in blood. And all of us have a lot of sensors that measure sugar level in blood. And if sugar level in blood go below a certain level, we feel hunger. We feel hungry. And so this is emotion that indicates this is a motion that indicates that something should be done, namely you have to eat. If you're hungry, you have to eat, and we know it emotionally. And so these basic mechanisms are easy to describe mathematically. Actually, this theory of emotions and instincts is not mine. It was developed a while ago. What I did, I said that, well, there is even more important mechanism that measuring sugar level in blood, or more important instinct. There is instinct which drives us to understand what's going on around, and it is called knowledge instincts. And we have to modify content of our mind in order to understand what's going on around. And this mechanism moving us is called, again, knowledge instinct. And satisfaction of knowledge instincts is it is emotion, as for every other instinct, but very specific emotions. It is emotions, it's called aesthetic emotions. Actually, Kant said, was the first one to say that specific emotions related to knowledge, he called them aesthetic. They are also related to beautiful, and if, another maybe minute and I will tell you how it's related. But not everything aesthetic relates to beautiful. Aesthetic relates to knowledge. It's, by the way, it's very interesting because many there is common confusion about aesthetic. People think that beauty is related to sex. Well, it is not. Sex is related to a different instinct, to procreation, whereas beauty, also a very important thing, of course, but beauty is related to understanding. And now I'll try to explain to you what exactly, how exactly it is related. There is, as I said, hierarchy of things in our mind, from objects to more abstract ideas, and to something at the top. And the higher you go, the more vague are representations in our mind. I'm sorry, let me make a step back. What is important is that at every level in our mind, representations have specific evolutionary purpose. They evolved in evolution in order to understand what is below. Say, a situation room, we have to have this kind of representations in order to make more sense out of chairs and tables and, say, patterns on the floor or ceiling, or ignore them, in order to understand abstract ideas. And so at every level there is an abstract idea which is needed in order to understand what is below it. And so what is, now we can kind of say what is at the top. It is not yet experimentally proven. I'm trying to find experimental psychologists who will prove that what I said is right. That near the top, there are representations which try to make sense out of our entire life experience. And the way we perceive them or experience them, these are representations of the meaning of our life. And some people will say, oh, life doesn't have any meaning. And other people say, oh, of course my life does have a meaning. And you can argue that a lot of ways, but you cannot, nobody can change really the way how our mind is wired. So there is something near the top, some representation near the top that tries to make sense out of your entire life experience. Of course, it is not easy. It cannot make, it means mind. The mind cannot make sense out of your entire life experience as clear cut as, for example, I can see a chair or table. And when we finally, not finally, but once in a while, a little bit, we can clarify what's going on with the meaning of our life. And at that time, we feel emotion. Of course, there is emotion of satisfaction of the knowledge instinct. And this is emotion at the top, is emotion of the beautiful. It is very similar to what Kant has said, but he didn't have this intervening neural ideas or how things relate to each other, knowledge instinct. And so he said, today, Kant said, talking about his time, today we cannot make it more clear it has to be really clarified, but today we don't have enough knowledge to do that. Well, I think that today, in 2014, we probably can do that. And that would be probably the last thing I'll show today, is that there's actually two hierarchies: hierarchy of cognition and hierarchy of language. And please notice that hierarchy of cognition, only at the very bottom, it is grounded in the life, in what really goes on around us. Whereas language is grounded in the language in the society. A baby is born and language already exists around. So the language that the baby will learn by 5, by 7, is grounded in the entire cultural evolution of this particular culture where he is living. And so language existing in society provides ground for language of a particular human being, which provides grounds for abstract ideas. And actually there is experimental data corresponding to this, that we understand abstract ideas due to language that we learned from the language existing around us. And I probably will stop it at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.